China is embarking on a journey that no one predicted would be feasible. Without firing a single shot, it achieves the goal of gaining control of a G7 nation. The country of Italy, which is one of the oldest powers in Europe, is currently at the core of China's worldwide ambitions. However, how did this come about? Why is Italy suddenly showing such a strong interest in China? It was a calculated gamble that led to Italy's choice to accept China's influence in the first place. In 2019, it became a member of the Belt and Road Initiative, a decision that caused shockwaves to spread throughout the European Union, EU, to which other countries within the bloc protested. While Italy was looking for ways to solve its economic problems, it broke ranks. All of the arguments were obvious. An enormous amount of pressure was placed on Italy's government as a result of the country's public debt, which was over 2.8 trillion euros and represented around 150% of the country's GDP. In the meantime, southern Italy was experiencing unemployment rates that were more than 20%, putting Rome in severe need of foreign investment. The promises made by China to upgrade Italian ports and infrastructure, particularly in Genoa and Trieste, were too attractive to resist due to their potential benefits. The participation of Italy with the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, signals a pivot toward realistic economics, according to Philippe Lecoury of Harvard University, even though it runs the danger of alienating partners from the European Union. This judgment, however, has not been without its share of criticism. It was warned by EU officials that Italy's stance might potentially erode the unity of Europe. Despite this, Rome continued to exist. Italy became an important gateway for Chinese goods entering Europe as a result of the influx of investments from China. When it comes to strengthening its footing in Europe, how is China taking advantage of Italy's position? China benefits from Italy in more ways than only as a trading partner. Italy's ports have become essential components of China's maritime Silk Road due to their location at the crossroads of the Mediterranean and Central Europe. This offers Italy with a geographical and strategic edge. The port of Trieste, for instance, has been rebuilt to meet the increasing amount of cargo coming from China. This was made possible by significant investments from COSCO Shipping, which is a Chinese state-owned corporation. The port now acts as a direct gateway for Chinese goods heading into Austria, Germany, and the Balkans. However, China's policy encompasses more than just ports. With the acquisition of a 35% share in the electricity grid operator Terna, Beijing has decided to focus its attention on Italy's energy sector. Not only do these tactics guarantee profit, but they also guarantee having influence over vital infrastructure. An observation made by Francesca Ghiretti of Marx is that Italy is not merely a partner, rather it serves as a testing ground for China's ability to exert influence over European markets and policy. What opportunities does China have to benefit from the strengthening of its relationship with Italy? Would you kindly like and subscribe? In the comments section, please share your ideas. Your aid contributes to our expansion. I am grateful to you. There are several other ways in which China might gain from its relationship with Italy, including economic access. Italy, which is the third largest economy in the European Union, is an important entry point for Chinese commodities. In order for Beijing to circumvent regulatory hurdles in other regions of Europe, strengthening this cooperation is very necessary. Technology transfer. The innovative sectors of Italy, such as robotics and aircraft, are essential to China's efforts to improve its technological capabilities. China's ability to absorb cutting-edge ideas is made possible by partnerships with Italian companies. China is able to gain political leverage by embedding itself in Italy's economy. This allows China to gain a voice in European policy discussions, which is especially important when Italy pushes back against EU measures targeting Beijing. In 2022, trade between China and Italy reached 55 billion euros, with China enjoying a significant trade surplus. Why would Italy take the risk of alienating its friends in the European Union in order to strengthen its ties with Beijing? It is Italy's anger with the bureaucracy of the European Union and its perceived lack of support that led to the country's decision to align itself with China. Over the course of several years, Rome had a difficult time obtaining significant investments from Brussels, which left the city vulnerable to economic stagnation. China, on the other hand, took a timely and straightforward approach. Giorgia Meloni, Italy's prime minister, justified Italy's position by claiming that the country must prioritize developing its economy and remaining competitive. Having partnerships that are able to produce results is essential. These feelings were echoed by Marco Cuerto, who is the proprietor of a small firm in Milan. When Chinese investors approached us, things started moving rapidly. We had submitted several applications for funding from the European Union, but we had received no response. A piece of editorial writing published in the Financial Times pointed out that Italy's collaboration with China is indicative of a larger trend in European politics where ideological affinity is frequently trumped by economic necessity. The shift in Italy's focus toward China is most noticeable in its reaction to the trade policies of the EU. Why did tariffs on electric vehicles from China bring Rome closer to, in September 2023, the European Union, EU, slapped anti-subsidy taxes on electric vehicles, EVs, manufactured in China? The EU claimed that Beijing unfairly subsidizes its automakers in order to flood European markets with inexpensive automobiles. Although the policy was designed to defend manufacturers in Germany and France, it nonetheless had unforeseen effects for Italy. Automobile manufacturers in Italy, such as Fiat, are significantly reliant on batteries and components manufactured in China. According to Bloomberg, these tariffs will increase production costs by 15%, which will put Italy's electric vehicle EV sector, which is already suffering, at a disadvantage. In order to take advantage of the circumstance, China made special arrangements on electric vehicle supply chains available to Italy. In spite of the fact that this action increased Italy's dependence on Chinese imports and further damaged its relationship with Brussels, the impact of trade tensions between the EU and China is not restricted to automobile manufacturers. Where do Italian farmers find themselves caught in the crossfire? The agricultural products that Italy exports, particularly olive oil, wine, and Parmesan cheese, are extremely important to the Chinese market. China was the recipient of more than 500 million euros worth of food items sent from Italy in 2022, and this number is anticipated to increase. However, retaliatory actions by Beijing against European agriculture were taken in response to restrictions imposed by the European Union on Chinese goods. The challenges that Giovanni Prado, an olive farmer in Puglia, was going through were highlighted. As of this year, we have lost close to 40% of our orders from China. It is possible that the policies of the EU protect certain businesses, but they are destroying ours. The president of the Veneto region, Luca Zaia, stated to La Repubblica that farmers are the ones who are suffering the most as a result of geopolitical tensions. In addition to agriculture, the European Union needs to reevaluate its approach. What is it about Italy's luxury and technology sectors that makes them so important to China's strategy? High-end Italian luxury products are experiencing a surge in demand as a result of China's expanding middle class. Gucci, Prada, and Ferrari are just few of the luxury brands that depend on the spending of Chinese consumers, who account for 38% of all luxury expenditures worldwide. China wills to have better access to these highly sought-after products as a result of strengthening its connections with Italy. Concerning the technological side of things, Italy's robotics and renewable energy industries are equally vital. Ferrari announced a 23% rise in sales to China in 2022, highlighting the significant economic ties that exist between the two countries. Companies such as Huawei have formed partnerships with Italian universities in order to progress technology such as 5G and artificial intelligence to further their development. Are these economic benefits, however, good enough to justify the risks to Italy's sovereignty? The reliance of Italy on Chinese investments raises concerns about the country's ability to maintain its independence over the long run, given that Chinese companies own stakes in ports, energy networks, and even manufacturing. Some people believe that Italy is giving Beijing an excessive amount of influence. In an article published in The Economist, Natalie Tocci expressed her concern that economic partnerships are one thing, but when they extend into critical sectors, they blur the line between providing opportunities and requiring them. The leaders of the European Union have voiced their alarm, pointing out that Italy's actions have the potential to damage the joint efforts of Europe to counteract the influence of China. This widening divide may be a sign that the unity of the EU is beginning to crumble. During the time that Germany and France are advocating for stricter controls on Chinese investments, countries such as Hungary, Greece, and now Italy are pursuing deeper connections with Beijing. Italy's alignment with China has exposed divisions within the European Union. The fact that only 28% of Germans consider China to be an economic partner, in contrast to 47% of Italians, is evidence of the significant gap that exists inside the bloc, as revealed by a study conducted by Pew Research. Is Italy's partnership with China a bold move for growth or a dangerous political gamble for Italy? The partnership delivers immediate economic benefits, ranging from increased trade to infrastructure upgrades. However, the long-term risk of loss of autonomy and strained EU relations cast a shadow over these gains. If more nations follow Italy's lead, the European Union, EU, runs the risk of becoming fragmented, which would weaken its ability to act as a unified geopolitical force. According to Philippe Lecour, Italy's relationship with China is a high-stakes gamble that has the potential to transform the country's economic future for the better or for the worse. Italy's actions are four. Italy is testing conventional Western alliances and signaling a shift toward more transactional partnerships. Europe is aligning itself with China, which is causing it to reevaluate its role in global commerce. The battle that Europe faces to maintain its internal unity in the face of external challenges from growing nations such as China is brought into focus by this move. Is it possible that other EU members could be inspired to turn toward Beijing by Italy's example? The strategy that Italy is taking is being closely monitored by smaller EU states, particularly those that are experiencing difficulties in their economies. In the event that Italy's strategy is successful, it has the potential to bring about a more widespread realignment within the European Union, which would undermine Brussels' collective stance on China. It was noticed by Francesca Goretti that Italy's diplomacy might potentially serve as a model for how smaller nations navigate between their devotion to the EU and their partnerships with other countries. To what extent does this impact international coalitions? An important shift in the way global alliances are being reimagined is being signaled by Italy's engagement with China. Relationships that are pragmatic and driven by interests are gradually replacing the traditional Western alliances that were formed on ideological alignment and core principles that are held in common. This partnership is a blueprint for how China can challenge Western dominance by offering investments in areas where traditional institutions such as the European Union or the International Monetary Fund have failed to deliver for Europe. Countries such as Italy are prioritizing immediate economic gains over long-term commitments to traditional allies, which is a signal of a more transactional world order for China. It brings up pressing problems regarding how to strike a balance between the requirement of the economy and the independence of strategy. A bigger story of economic supremacy in Europe may begin with China's expanding influence in Italy, which could be the opening chapter in this larger narrative. China's willingness to invest without imposing political conditions may entice more countries to move away from Brussels' orbit. The case of Italy demonstrates how Beijing can turn financial investments into strategic leverage, gaining footholds in key sectors such as energy infrastructure and now electric vehicles. This is because China is willing to invest without imposing political conditions. The more far-reaching implication is quite clear. If the European Union, EU, fails to provide a cohesive strategy to oppose China's expanding reach, Europe may find itself becoming increasingly dependent on Beijing, not only economically but also politically. The balance of power could be reshaped as a result of this, with Europe becoming a struggle for influence between China and the West because of this. The strengthening of Italy's ties with China is more than just a story concerned with economics. This should serve as a warning to Europe and the rest of the world. As a result of the shifting power balance, conventional alliances are being put to the test in a way that has never been seen before. Will the European Union come up to the challenge? When it comes to Europe's future, will the United States of America resist China's economic relationships, or will China become the defining force? The subsequent events will determine more than just the level of commerce. The world order will be influenced by it for many decades to come. We are delighted that you are pleased with this film. Would you kindly like and subscribe? Take a look at the other video that is being played on your screen.